Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and you want to know about how we're helping other accredited investors keep more of their income, go to firstgencp.com/going long.
I've seen the evolution of technology in my career from start to finish in the process of acquisition of a property, of managing a property, become such a tremendous tool that it really literally does not matter where a property is in order to successfully own it.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I am really excited to welcome you back to today's conversation because this one is another one of these that's just absolutely awesome. Talk about being able to gain from someone's 3 decades of experience. Like today's the conversation is going to be really, really awesome. Also, I could not even go further without saying thank you so much. You continue to share the episodes, we see the numbers continue to go up on the podcast. Thank you for those of you who are also sharing it across social media, taking your screenshots, but don't forget to make sure that you tag us whether you're on LinkedIn or you're on Facebook or Instagram. We like being able to see that. Sometimes people send me a direct message. Hey, did you see this? I'm like, no, I didn't see it because I didn't get tagged, but just tag us. It would be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. And also too, for those of you that were leaving your honest written reviews as well as ratings, really appreciate that. It helps us to continue to move up the charts. And lastly, you know what? If you want to see any of the previous episodes, you want to listen to any of the previous episodes, all you need to do is go to firstgencp.com/podcasts, and you can check out every podcast that we've ever done. So firstgencp.com/podcasts is the place to go to check out every single podcast. So as I talked about before, today's conversation, we get a chance to speak to someone who's had 3 decades in the real estate space, done a number of different things, student housing, development, value add in suburban areas, and continues to pivot, right? That is one of the big things that we're going to talk about. You're going to hear how he's leveraging technology. And when you get a chance to learn from Michael Zaransky, you're really, really going to love it. And we're going to get to that just after this. Are you a busy, high-paid professional? Someone that in the previous 2 years has earned $200,000 and is expected to earn $200,000 this year? Or maybe if you filed jointly, previously you've earned $300,000 the previous 2 years and you're also expected to do that this year. Or maybe if not, either individually or jointly, you have $1 million in net worth, not including your primary residence. If you meet any of these criteria, then you're someone that the IRS considers to be an accredited investor. That probably means you're someone like an enterprise software sales executive. You may be an executive in a major corporation. You may be a doctor. You may be a lawyer, maybe a high-paid consultant. You may even work for a major sports franchise. The thing I know you have in common is that you continue to do the hard work. Like you're doing 100% of the work and you're only bringing home 50% of the reward because you continue to get crushed by your income taxes. If you are tired of this situation and you're looking for a new solution, then go to firstgencp.com/going long. When you get there, that's going to help you to start the journey so that you can begin to take back control of your taxes, take control of your time. And then also that means you're going to be able to spend more of the time that you want with the people that you love the most. And that is the way that you're going to get the personal freedom that you're looking for. So if you're looking to take back control, go ahead and go to firstgencp.com/going long and see how we can help you today. So if you want to understand how tapping into 3 decades of real estate private equity can massively accelerate your long distance investing success, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? Because today's guest, I believe, has spent his entire professional life in the real estate space in one way or another. He also has his education from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and he also has his JD Law from Northwestern University. He's a board member today of the National Multifamily Council Housing Committee, as well as the board member of the Michael Reese Health Trust. He's the co-CEO of Prime Property Investors, as well as the founder and managing member of MZ Capital Partners. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Michael Zaransky. Michael, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Billy.
Hey, listen, you know what? And you're one of the other things. He's also a 2-time author, and I'm sure that he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And if you don't, Michael, I'll tell him about your books and stuff like that, which is going to be pretty cool. As you know, Michael, I love to ask all of our guests at least 5 questions. Reality is you're going to get more than that. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the very end. And in the middle, I have no idea, but I'm sure whatever the answers you give are going to add lots of value to the Going Long family. So the very first thing I'd love for you to share with the Going Long family, Michael, is help us understand, where do you call home in the United States?
I live in the suburbs of Chicago. I live on the North Shore in a suburb called Northbrook, Illinois. By design, my office is in Northbrook as well. There's a commercial corridor with office structures where I office. And I've been here in this community most of my adult life.
All right. Absolutely fantastic. So up in Northbrook, appreciate that. And then, Michael, help us understand, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
The last 24 hours, the most positive thing was seeing my 2 of my 5 grandkids and playing with them, played hide and seek. And love the fact that they're young enough to love being with me and spending time with me, and not old enough to be bored and wanting to be with their friends.
You know what? And I don't, if you're not watching the video version of this, everybody, you need to literally watch the video version, because the smile on Michael's face goes from literally ear to ear as he's talking about this experience with the 2 of his 5 grandchildren, which is absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Michael, because it's those little moments that really help us realize that we don't have to wait for these magnificently spectacular things to recognize how fortunate we can be in a 24-hour day. It's simply being able to play hide and go seek with 2 of your grandchildren. So thank you very much for that. I also want to just share a little bit of something with you that everybody in the Going Long family, they already know this about me, Michael, but I happen to be a recovering perfectionist. I try to do things at times like set the bar so high that it becomes impossible to achieve. For instance, trying to tell your entire backstory in 2.5 seconds. That was never going to happen, right? Because you've done way too much. You've impacted way too many lives. So I'm going to have to ask you for a favor right up front, which is number 1, can you please tell your backstory in your own words? And you can go a lot longer than 2.5 seconds. And then the other thing is, while you're telling your backstory, Michael, can you really help us understand, what are some of the major decisions that you've made along the journey? And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
So I love real estate, always have. I started out in the real estate business buying smaller buildings in the Chicago metropolitan area. We call them 3-story walk-ups. You see them in a lot of American cities, older brick buildings. We did some remodeling of them and renovation. And then from there, learned the importance of the overused word today of pivot, of changing with the times and going through various levels and stages of seeing demographic trends, following them, and following the trends in real estate. Evolved into condominium conversions, built and jumped on the bandwagon of the student housing growth here in the United States, and built a student housing portfolio on 7 major campuses here in the US. Exited those a number of years ago and focused on garden style suburban apartment communities. First acquiring existing properties that were already up and running and stabilized, and using better management and modifications and improvements to receive better yields. And of late have been focused on ground up new construction development, of taking a raw piece of land and developing an apartment community, principally suburban, but some urban, here in the United States, and have evolved as times have changed, and learned that's the key. That's the key to success for me.
All right, fantastic. So understanding that key is that coming back to that word you talked about. And then I think the second thing you said was really understanding the importance of being able to pivot. I do want to just also give everybody a plug here, or actually, Michael, let's give you a plug here, because you talked about the 7 different major markets, 7 major campuses across the U.S., but also Michael has written, one of his books is Profit by Investing in Student Housing. I believe that you've gained so much knowledge that you decided to share that knowledge through a book. And I know you have a second one as well, Michael, but there's a bunch of different questions that I do want to ask you. But and your second book is purchase, rehab, reposition, and commercial investment property. What gave you the impetus to really decide to sit down and share your experience and knowledge through books?
I wish I could tell you I had this epiphany of wanting to share with the world. That was the result. It was basically a call from a publisher here in Chicago that publishes business books that saw an interview in one of the industry trade publications with me on student housing and asked me if I'd ever consider writing a book. We got together for lunch. And it was kind of on my bucket list of, boy, one day I'd love to write a book. And here a publisher approached me. So I dove in and really thoroughly enjoyed it. The results I enjoy even more. And aside from checking it off the bucket list, I enjoy the fact that so many people in the industry, particularly in the student housing industry over the years, have said to me, I read your book. It really got me interested in student housing, and I made a career of it. Innumerable people. It's great.
You know, Michael, it's amazing what can happen when you talk about the impact, but so many times it's not even the financial aspect. You're talking about a book that I'm sure today is still providing royalties and all that stuff, but what gives you the most satisfaction is more the impact that you're having on other people and the fact that they're sharing their stories and what your experience has helped them be able to go out and achieve and the impact that it's providing them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting how these things happen, right? When you grow up and you think everything, and money is the answer to everything, you start realizing, no, a lot of it is just being able to share and be able to provide impact, positive impact on others. Yes. Makes it great. So I do want to come back to one of the things, because, you know, I mentioned it, you mentioned it as well, that you've spent the majority of your professional life, if not all your professional life, in real estate. You talked about where you started in those 3-story walk-ups. But I'm always curious, like, what was it about real estate that attracted you to it? And then not just attracted you to it, but decided that you wanted to continue to stay in that space?
I do like from the non-financial aspect of being able to take a property, either an existing one or raw land that's a blank slate, and creating something that people are going to use and putting your own personal imprint on it is really very rewarding to me. I also found as I got into it that I liked the idea of seeing what was going on in the world at the time and creating a property to fit those needs. Like today, for example, in apartments, building in work from home areas, in clubhouses and communities, co-working areas, and reservable work from home rooms for Zoom calls or meetings and collaboration. I also liked the financial rewards of real estate. I have watched careers and seen a number of people that I've come into contact with that have created wealth for their families, generational wealth, largely through appreciation of value of real estate. It's a commodity that is not infinite. It's limited because there's only so much space on planet Earth. Demand for it, particularly in multifamily, is there during inflationary times, during recessionary times. It is recession proof. It's a hedge against inflation. And of late, it is proven that you can't outsource it to the internet. You can work remotely. You can shop remotely, but you can't sleep on the internet. You need an apartment or a home to sleep.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone try to cuddle up with their phone, literally, and sleep on the phone. But, well, next to the phone maybe, but that's a whole different story. We won't go down that rabbit hole. So one of the things, so you've talked about being in different spaces, we talked about the student housing. You also talked about development. You've also talked about the value add aspects. You know, here, one of the things that I like to talk about, and people tend to want to be here because we know that we don't have a geographical barrier, right? Although many of the books will say, hey, listen, you actually need to live in the property. And if you want to be a landlord, you can do that. But as you start to get bigger and you start to understand that investing is a team sport, geography becomes less of a barrier. At the same time, recognize that that's very, very contrarian, because still most people believe that you actually have to live 2 blocks away from the property that you're actually a part of or owning. So I'd be curious as to, through your, over 30 years of experience in this space, what is it that would allow you to say, hey, listen, it's okay to build a team and invest beyond my backyard because?
Yes,
what would you say?
I've seen the evolution principally of technology in my career, from start to finish in the process of acquisition of a property, of managing a property, become such a tremendous tool that it really literally does not matter where a property is in order to successfully own it and operate it. And in fact, I've developed a philosophy as a result that if you can invest anywhere or own a property anywhere, you should do it where there's the maximum potential for success. And that could include other states. I have not jumped over the ocean to overseas, but I have friends that have. But here in the United States, for example, we invest in and develop in multi-states outside of our backyard. And frankly, when we are operating a property, because of technology today and everything that's online, I have a dashboard for each of our properties where I know exactly what's going on, how many prospects there were, how many leases were written, who hasn't paid their rent, what our occupancy level is, and our average rents. And when I do go visit properties, which I like to do, I really know everything that's going on. It's more of a social visit and a building camaraderie. And it's very easy to manage remotely.
So, and I've been doing this for a decade as well, and doing it internationally, but always with a focus back in the United States. And so I would love to hear, just maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about that last part, because I think that's the part when you say that you can manage it remotely, that provokes a lot of fear for people to say, hang on a second, well, yeah, but why would I ever do that? This is a real asset. I need to be able to touch it. I need to be able to hold it. And I heard you talk about the technology piece, but maybe also too, Michael, I know in the beginning it wasn't necessarily easy. There were some things that I had to do and be exposed to and learn. But can you talk to us maybe about that learning process that goes from I've never done this before to understanding that remotely, if you can wake up in Northbrook and be there and your properties are somewhere else, your assets somewhere else, it allows you to even get a higher quality of life. Maybe, but talk us through what that transition is like to get to that feeling of, okay, remote's just fine. It's like everything else.
Yeah, 100%. I get it. And I as I lived through the change in technology, I also lived through changes in behavior of the renting public and employees. And what I found is they move much quicker than I did in accepting and embracing it. For example, I'm old enough and around long enough to remember running ads in newspapers of apartments for rent. Newspapers are those things that you hold in your hand and you open their paper. For those of you that never seen one. And then meeting someone at a building in order to show them an apartment.
Yeah.
Today, it's 24/7 online through various sites or our own website, and using technology where a prospect could have a virtual tour of a property, actually go inside of an apartment and click around and see every inch of it, see all the rental rates, the square footages, get their own furniture to kind of fit in the floor plan, and then even make application online and apply online, and then execute a lease online. And I find that the evolution of the consumer that we serve was so quick into embracing that renters prefer the non-in-person contact, prefer a 2 a.m. in the morning browsing of apartments and making application because they happen to be up and looking for something to do. And like the idea of a virtual tour. So I found that you could fight wanting to hold on to and keep the in-person, got to be 2 blocks from my house, love of a property, but the rest of the world is not into it.
Trusting that you're enjoying today's conversation. And you know what? If you're tired of getting crushed by taxes and you're looking for greater freedom to be able to choose what you want to do when you want to do it, make sure that you go to firstgencp.com/going-long and see how we can help you today. Let's get back to the conversation. So recognizing that the rest of the world, like the majority, are not into that. They want to be able to watch at 2 or 3 a.m. or do whatever.
Yeah.
What have you found that has done also from, I guess 2 aspects come to mind. Number one, from a customer-centric type of focus, right? And then number 2, from a business efficiency, because I would assume that there's some efficiencies there as well that maybe people aren't thinking about. Maybe could you talk to us about those 2 aspects, your own business efficiency and also customer centricity?
Yeah, in terms of the customer, we still do have contact with and rely on local on-site management. Particularly for maintenance, because that's, something can't be done remotely on site. Also, in office, in person for people to interact with a manager or an assistant manager. But in terms of overall efficiency, it just literally, it's amazing how you can see what's going on in real time. Both from a feedback standpoint and see how many people are looking and applying for apartments. And then also just from a financial performance standpoint, with a click of a button, a complete rent roll or a real-time income and expense statement at a property that used to take months to complete. It's incredible how the business has changed.
Yeah, when you're able to collapse timeframes, see how rapidly business can change, and the way that you're also able to, once again, one of the things you said earlier, pivot and be able to respond to tenant needs, customer needs, resident needs, however you want to call it, and be able to do that all from the fingertips of your phone or your dashboard on your laptop. It's pretty amazing. I do want to ask you another question, because this also has to do with one of the things I talked about before, just from your own background. So the law profession, or law from a law perspective or legal perspective. Help us understand, because sometimes when you're doing due diligence, just in general, right? Because that's a big kind of blanket term.
Yeah.
But how has your educational training helped you today in terms of your ability to lead teams and be more proficient through due diligence?
I think on the acquisition and disposition side of the business, which is an important part of it, the legal background probably is most useful. From our standpoint, I think it has taught me to focus on what's important and not get bogged down with the lawyers and the transaction on details that don't matter, knowing what to let go and what to press in terms of a contract negotiation on an acquisition of a property. And same thing on a disposition, or when it comes to the financing part of it, mortgage financing, which is a key component to success in the real estate business, negotiating those documents and focusing again on what's important and not letting the transaction have a life of its own and go off on tangents. I think that's been very helpful.
Okay, fantastic. And really understanding and recognizing both on acquisition, time that you purchase, on the disposition, when you're moving the property on to the next owner or what have you, having that foresight, having that draining background as well to understand, like, hey, listen, where do we press, where do we release, and how do we make sure we keep our eye on the big picture to get to the outcome versus getting bogged down sometimes in some detail that probably don't need to get too bogged down into.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something else? Go ahead.
Yeah, also just on the day-to-day operation side, we do things by the book and follow all the rules and regulations. I've learned, and maybe it's a little bit of the legal background, but more practical business sense. It makes sense just to straight line, straight and narrow, not deviate, no shortcuts, because it's just aside from being the right way to run a business, it's just such a distraction to get pulled into, issues and problems for not following the rules.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Two other things that I wanted to ask you about, Michael. One of which is, you've pivoted, you've gone from the as you mentioned before, the 3-story walk-ups in the student housing, the value add, the development, and you've seen the technological change and things like that. And I really want to know, or myself and the entire Going Long family, is what aspect did being able to network, be exposed to these new types of opportunities and or teams, like how has that played a role in your ability to be able to pivot and kind of see where the puck is going, the proverbial puck is going, versus kind of where it is today?
Yeah, I think for me and many others who I know who have achieved success in the business, that networking and knowledge as to what's going on in the industry through the activity and trade associations and the sharing that we've talked about, that's been so important in learning and seeing the direction of trends in the industry. I also find various business groups that even not necessarily are focused exclusively on real estate have given me insight and ideas. I happen to have been active and involved in an organization called the Young Presidents Organization, YPO, when I was a young president. Now I'm in a group called YPO Gold, which is for the alumni of YPO, and I find that group to be invaluable. It operates on a system of helping members in a confidential, complete trust setting. And I learn a lot and participate in a number of their conferences, and just been a tremendous learning experience and a tremendous base for any success that I've achieved in real estate.
I love hearing that, because as you talked about the successes that you've achieved in real estate, but also you've been able to attribute that to different leadership organizations that are outside of real estate. And you recognize that that's seen all the time. I mean, one of the things I used to work for a very large enterprise software company, and we would go in and speak with CEOs of multi-billion euro type of companies. And one of the meetings that you just made me think about this was, I remember going in, this company does about, I think it's 2.5 billion in turnover, euros or whatever at the time. That was probably $4 billion, something like that. And when we spoke to the CEO of the company, he didn't want to hear about his industry peers. He wanted to hear about, and this was a hotel industry, he wanted to hear about what things were happening in the telco sector. He wanted to hear about the things that were happening in I think one was telco and the other was consumer products. So so it's very similar to what you're talking about, is you don't necessarily need to always be in your own industry, because a lot of the innovation, a lot of the new ideas comes from speaking to people who are at a similar or higher level, maybe not even the higher level, but they're giving you different inputs of how they are attacking their particular problems. And you can see, oh, wait, hang on a second. I can apply that to my specific situation.
100% right on. And there's a couple, as you were speaking, there were a couple examples of that came to mind. You mentioned the hotel industry. I love learning about the hotel industry and taking deep dives. I've had tours of a couple of hotels that are high levels of service. And I've actually adopted them in our multifamily communities to provide that concierge type service to our residents and distinguish us. Same thing on the fitness industry. Used to be in the apartment business. When people started joining gyms, we'd take an apartment and throw in a couple of exercise machines and call that the fitness center. But now we design state-of-the-art killer fitness centers that are patterned off the most successful fitness center experiences.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. And it's great to hear that this happens, constantly. It's about how do we share, back to your point earlier, how do we come together? How do we share ideas and then use those ideas, adapt them to our specific situation with the goal of providing the right outcome for our clients. When we can do that and do that consistently, then that allows us to continue to build the relationship, deepen the relationship with our clients and improve their experience. So here's the thing, Michael, like I want to keep talking to you forever, right? But we kind of got to get to this thing called the Going Long Final 3. And you're our special guest today, and I'm never, ever, ever going to ask anybody the Going Long Final 3, and not you today, unless you tell me that you're ready. So my question for you is, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You were born ready, man. I knew that was going to be the answer. So here we go. So we started with you over in Northbrook, Illinois, and I'm a Midwest guy as well. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. But over the last 21 years, I've called Europe my home, and the last 15 years has been here in Barcelona. So I would love for you to share with us. I know you're well-traveled as well. So help us understand, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited, which I know you visited a lot already, or is still on your bucket list to visit?
I got to say Prague. I love Prague, the city of Prague. And it kind of, maybe it was because I was surprised. I was blown away. I didn't expect in that country to find such a beautiful city, the bridges, the waters, the culture. Just kind of blew me away.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I'm going to guess that you were there in the summertime?
Yes. Based on my response, yeah.
Guess who spent a month there in January of 2006?
Oh, man.
This guy. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Just a different experience. So awesome. So I appreciate that. So Prague is going to include that in the show notes. And then the second thing that I'd love to know from you, Michael, is, and I'll have to just tell you, like, this is one of the things that I have seen from the very good fortune that I've had to be exposed to lots of very successful people. And I consider you to be someone who's very successful. You've over 3 decades impacted, thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of lives through the different roles that you've played. And hopefully you'll agree with me that, one of the things that I've seen and noticed from really successful people is typically the successful people, unlike most, whenever they kind of have an idea, they put that idea together, they go out and they execute that idea, they get everything right the first time, which is what allows them to actually go even faster. Don't worry, Michael. It's kind of a joke. Like, he's super cool, calm, and collected, everybody. Michael's like, but he's like going, oh, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah. I was thinking, how am I going to answer this one?
What did I say to this guy? Hang on a second. No, it's a joke. Of course it's a joke. So, like, here's the thing. Maybe it happens that they get things right every time or just one time, but not every time. The reality, Michael, and you know this, people that are really successful tend to make a lot more mistakes or have more learning opportunities than most people, probably 20 to 50 times more, because they're out trying more things. And the joke aside, like, the first part was a joke. This is not a joke at all. And hopefully, yes, you do agree with me. Like, the thing that happens with those people that are very successful is every single time that they go out and they make a relevant mistake or learning opportunity or whatever you call it, every single time that happens, without fault, they stop, they learn from that relevant mistake. And then what they do after that is pretty amazing. They go out and they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again. So I don't want you to think about the mistake that happened or that you made or the learning opportunity, however you want to call it, but really share with us that one lesson that the Going Long family needs to hear today so we can minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening to us.
So the lesson that's implicit in what you've said, and it's obvious, true, what you've said, is that I think successful people and people that are making things happen are doing things. They're actually trying things. They're not sitting there thinking about things and analyzing it to death. And they follow a slogan that I probably say too much in my office. They kind of roll my eyes when I say it, but I love it. So I repeat it a lot when we're in the middle of potentially moving forward on something. And I say, okay, it's time to ready, fire, aim. And too many people are sitting around ready, aim, fire. And you can aim yourself to death and never do anything. You got to take the leap.
Yeah, love that. So really get out there, take the leap, make the jump, and ready, fire, aim, and be able to get out there. So appreciate you sharing that with us, Michael. And that brings us to question number 3, which is also about filling our minds with knowledge. Now, we've already talked about your 2 books. We'll make sure that those are in the show notes as well. So if you want to go out and check out his books, Profit by Investing in Student Housing, as well as Purchase, Rehab, Reposition Commercial Investment Properties. We'll include both of those in the links in the show notes. Also, would love to know another book that you would recommend to help the Going Long family feed our minds today.
I'm such a real estate guy that I wish I could give you something to really fill your mind on a profound level. But one of my heroes in the real estate business is a guy by the name of Sam Zell. He happens to be based in Chicago. He's one of the most successful real estate entrepreneurs in history. He's the largest apartment owner in the United States. And Sam wrote a book recently that is kind of the story of his philosophy in real estate. And I highly, highly recommend it. It carries over into life and it carries over into other businesses as well.
All right, fantastic. So we'll find that one. You wouldn't happen to know the name of it right off the top of your head?
I got it on my shelf. If you don't mind me getting.
Oh yeah, no, not at all, not at all, man, not at all. We got a couple seconds, so we can do that.
You know what? Must be on my other shelf downtown.
It's all good. Don't worry. We'll get it. We've got it covered. We got you covered. So we'll get it there. We will include Sam Zell's book. And I'm just going back to the beginning of our conversation, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, you're telling us about this love for the real estate profession already. You're there, the small 3-story walk-ups. You had that special word that you learned, which was to get out there and pivot. And so as you were in a space that you were able to see, because you had real assets, tangible assets, you were able to see what was happening. You made one of your first pivots was from the walk-ups to the 7 different major campuses in the student housing space. You were able to do that. You then went to the garden style, urban type of properties in suburbs. You also focus more on the suburban versus urban. You were out in the development space. And then also a lot of the life lessons and being able to understand the importance of networking, building teams, being able to look to solve a specific issue or specific problem to be able to go out and add value for others, drawing on your own educational background and seeing how that helps you from a due diligence and lead your teams, whether it's on the acquisition, on the disposition side of things. And then also so many of the things that you're doing with MZ Capital Partners. We would love to know. And everybody here is already saying, Billy, just be quiet and ask him the question. So here's the thing. Help us understand, Michael, how can the Going Long family find out more about you, also more about what you're doing at MZ Capital Partners, and so that we can connect?
Sure. Best way is to check us out on our website, mzcapitalpartners.com. Feel free to contact me directly at mhz@mzcapitalpartners.com. And I'm always happy to share and exchange and have you check us out on our website.
All right, perfect. So listen, everybody, and don't worry, we're going to make that easy. All you have to do is click a link, right? You're talking about technology. We're going to make it easy and simple for you so you can get in touch with Michael directly, find out more about him, go to mzcapital.com. And listen, Michael, I just want to say thank you. It is mzcapitalpartners.com, right? Okay, perfect. Yes. I just wanted to make sure I said that. But like I said, there's going to be a link. So the team gets it right. So here's the thing. I just want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate you deciding to invest your time with me and the entire Going Long family. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's great talking to you and getting to know you a little better. You take care now.
All right, fantastic. And Michael, if you give me literally like 15 seconds, we'll wrap things up and get out of here. So Going Long family, listen, Michael, he shared so much with you today. Based over his 3 decades of experience, he's helped you to understand different types of assets within the real asset space, talked to you about value add, he talked to you about development, building teams, leveraging previous experience, and ultimately even things like technology to bring a better experience to your customers. So listen, take today's conversation, share it with your friends, share it with your family, have the conversation so that you can go from theory to practice. And while you're doing that, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Trust that you enjoyed today's conversation. And once again, today's conversation was sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and want to find out more about how we're helping accredited investors to gain their personal freedom even faster, go to firstgencp.com/going long.